Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We've talked extensively over the last couple of weeks about this USC team just looking different on the football field in 2024, but I think an equally important conversation in terms of kind of continuing momentum and building a program that's going to win at the highest level every single year is if you can transition that play on the football field and kind of continue that momentum on the recruiting trail. And I think USC is doing just that. And for the USC fans who've been rocking with the boys going back to the summer months when we were talking a lot on the recruiting trail, we always kind of said like there was a little dip in terms of the excitement and the buzz and the recruiting momentum that USC had on the trail. But we always said if USC can put together a really impressive season in 2024, specifically on the defensive side of the football, that recruiting momentum is going to build back up. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing over the last couple of weeks, not only landing a couple massive commitments, guys like Ty Jackson, but I think more importantly, we said USC is going to have a massive opportunity to really close the 2025 class out strong. It looks like that's exactly what they're planning on doing. We want to talk about a few names that are on commit watch for USC, but also some names that you're starting to hear are really gaining some momentum towards USC. Fired up to get into it now. Before we do, and as always, to the USC fans, this is a program you all know I love talking about, specifically on the recruiting trail. Not a lot of fan bases, if you will, are very engaged on the recruiting trail, especially in the summer months. Y'all always showed a ton of love, a ton of support to the boys. I can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And let's start with five-star wide receiver Jerome Miles from Utah committing tomorrow. Now, it sounds like USC is probably the leader in the clubhouse heading into this commitment. I'll just say this. We're going to get on, and if he does commit to USC, break down a little bit of the film. This kid is not hard to sell to the USC fans. 6'2", 210, runs a 10.36 in the 100-meter dash. Like, find me wide receivers that are 6'2", 210 pounds, and this kid is put together, and then also is the fastest football player on the field. Drew Miles, from a physical trait standpoint, is extremely impressive. But I think what's even more impressive is the senior year this kid is putting together now. Early August, watch Corner Canyon, the team he plays for out in Utah, host IMG Academy. IMG was the better football team, right? Line of scrimmage play, it was heavily favored in IMG. The only way Corner Canyon had a chance at winning that football game was wide receiver Jerome Miles. They also got a really good quarterback. That's how they won it. Like, Jerome Miles was just time and time again being the best player on the football field. It's hard to stand out when you're playing an IMG team that's just littered with Power 4 talent. Jerome Miles stood out. Like, he was clearly the best football player in that game. Jerome Miles, not only from a physical trait standpoint, is an extremely impressive prospect, but this kid puts it together on the football field. And one of the things I love about Jerome Miles is not much he can't do. Like, at 6'2", 210 with a 10.36 100-meter dash, this kid working vertically. There's not a lot of defensive backs that can, one, run with Jerome Miles, but more importantly, when you talk about throwing the football up in the air and then that 50-50 ball situation, like, how many defensive backs can not only run Jerome Miles, but then also handle the size and physicality that this kid has? Not many. And then secondly, what he can do after the catch. Again, fastest player on the football field, but also he's 210 pounds. He's extremely hard to bring down when he gets the open space. Nobody's catching him. Lincoln Riley's going to have a field day with this kid. Like, so many different ways you can ask Jerome Miles to impact an offense. I think this would be a massive commitment. One of my favorite wide receivers in this 2025 cycle. Again, we'll get into the film if and when he does commit to USC. I think the next player that I think a lot of USC fans are excited about, and the USC fans who've been rocking with the boys going back to the summer know this is one of my personal favorites, kind of one of my diamonds in the rough, if you will. Do not understand why he's only a composite 3-star. Floyd Buard. Fascinating background for Floyd, right? Grew up in Canada playing hockey. And I think at a certain point, it's like, dude, you're 6'3", 315. Got to get a helmet on you. Got to get some shoulder pads on you. He goes down to Mobile Christian, Alabama for his junior year. Is just a man amongst boys and some lower level competition at the high school level. Take a look at his numbers. 85 tackles, 27 tackles for loss, 11 sacks. Pretty much unblockable. And I think he kind of flew under the radar, one, because he was kind of late onto the scene being from Canada playing hockey. But I think more importantly, just wasn't playing at a massive powerhouse high school, not getting a ton of attention from 24/7 and on 3. And the guys that kind of run that scouting department. He's down at Miami Central for a senior year, one of the best programs in the state of Florida. I can't wait to see what the film looks like for Floyd Buard playing some of the best teams across the country at the high school level, because this kid at 6'3", 315, the get off is incredible. How he uses his hands are incredible. Now, there's a lot of development that needs to take place for Floyd Buard, but I would guess Coach Henderson and Coach New are looking at Floyd Buard and just licking their chops. Like, hey, give me an opportunity to work and develop this kid, because he can be a special caliber defensive lineman that I think can really fit what Coach Lynn wants to do on the defensive side of the football too, where you're seeing a lot more two gapping. And Floyd Buard at 6'3", right? Not necessarily the tallest, low pad level, low center of gravity. He can eat up those double teams, but he also can be a difference maker in the pass rush in terms of getting behind the line of scrimmage and making plays as well. It's hard to find those kind of defensive linemen that give you a ton of juice in terms of creating negative plays and getting after the passer, but also being able to do some of that dirty work in terms of two gapping and taking on double teams. Floyd Buard is one of those guys, and he was committed to Oklahoma. Kind of a wild story. I think he silently committed to USC because he was on a visit to USC. You saw the emojis coming out from Lincoln Riley and the personnel staff. I think a lot of people assumed it was Floyd Buard who committed, who had a commitment date of July 20th. As the week's gone on, Oklahoma was able to gain the momentum on the recruiting trail with him, ends up landing his commitment. He just decommitted from Oklahoma last night. I would not be surprised if USC is probably the leader in the clubhouse for Floyd Buard. The one other guy, we got two other guys I want to talk about. This was a kind of a surprising development for me, right? Michael Carroll, this kid is special, right? On3 has him as the number 9 player nationally, the number 1 interior offensive line prospect in the 2025 cycle. Started out his career in Pennsylvania, down at IMG for a senior year, committed to Alabama. That being said, this commitment is nowhere near being finalized. And it kind of sounded like Miami was the contender for Michael Carroll if he were to flip. It sounds like USC is going to make a run at Michael Carroll too. And I think this is probably the biggest storyline out of these players. Now, I love Jerome Miles. I like Floyd Buard, but Michael Carroll, in terms of satisfying what USC probably wants to address on the recruiting trail, Michael Carroll's a guy. You look at the offensive line commitments so far. I like Cardi Smith a lot. Elijah Vicona at the tackle spot is a project, right? We kind of know he's a massive human being, a little bit raw, probably won't be a contributor for the first 2 years that he's on campus, maybe even 3 years. You probably want one more bona fide blue chip prospect on the offensive line. That's Michael Carroll. And what I think special about Michael Carroll is that he's probably best on the inside at the guard spot. Kind of very similar conversation to Jonah Money. Jonah can play tackle at a high level, but his probably best positions on the inside. Michael Carroll probably very similar. Michael Carroll could play tackle. He's 6'6", he's 315, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's got 33-inch arms, but he's probably the best on the inside because of how just physically imposing he is. I think this would be a massive commitment because, one, you get a guy that's probably ready year 2, right? He could maybe even give you some production year 1 as a freshman. I think that's how physically impressive and developed he is, especially coming from IMG now his senior year. But I think more importantly, I think he gives you versatility. Like, if you need to play him at tackle, I think you could play him at tackle. If you want to play him on the inside, you can play him on the inside. Very similar skill set that Jonah has given USC's offensive line over the last couple of years. I think this would be a massive get for USC. And I think this one is, probably a longer ways away, but I think this would be a massive get for USC on the recruiting trail. Last one I want to talk about, and really interesting cat, Joseph Mbachi from Georgia. We broke down the film, and there wasn't a lot of it when he committed to Florida. This kid's fascinating, right? He's 6'4.5", he's 280 pounds. He grew up in Cameroon, still plays basketball, is primarily a basketball player. Started playing football at the beginning of his junior year, and there wasn't a ton of film on him. There's the film, you dive into the senior year film, was just kind of got done buzzing it before we went live here. This kid's freaky. Like, at 6'5", 280, his get off the line of scrimmage, the power that he has, the length that he has, the athleticism that he has, this kid is dripping with athletic traits. Still doesn't really know what he's doing playing football. I mean, you saw him tackle the wrong guy multiple times on the film. He's just a game wrecker on the inside. that has a long ways to go in terms of learning the sport and learning how to play football at a high level. But again, Coach Henderson, Coach Nua, very similar to how we talked about Floyd Buard, looking at this kid and said, just give me 2 years of working with this kid because he can be special. Didn't have a lot of offers. Florida got on him early, got his commitment 3 weeks into his, or maybe or a month now, into his senior season. Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama. I mean, the SEC schools are flocking to this kid. And he's going to be out at USC visiting, I believe, in early October. This is another guy that, again, Coach Henderson, Coach Nua would no doubt love to have in terms of that defensive line. Stash him away, see what he looks like coming into year two, because I think this kid could be special. Again, I think the biggest conversation to have here is USC winning on the football field, but also transitioning and kind of parlaying that success onto the recruiting trail. There's been a lot of teams. I think Washington's a really good example. I think my Michigan Wolverines are a really good example in terms of teams that have a lot of success on the football field the last couple of years, but haven't quite parlayed that in terms of winning recruiting battles, and the sustained success is in question. If you're USC, okay, if you're gonna win a lot of football games in 2024, you want to make sure we're kind of transitioning that momentum on the recruiting trail so we can sustain these kind of seasons. And it sounds like that's exactly what USC is doing. I think USC fans have a lot to be fired up about, not only in 2024, but really where this team is going in terms of roster construction on the recruiting trail. We'll close it out there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys, the USC fans. Y'all always continue to show a ton of support. It means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.